The moment I walked into that dimly lit bar and saw my husband David sitting across from a beautiful young woman who couldn't have been more than 25, laughing intimately over wine and expensive appetizers, I felt my 50 years of life experience collapse into that single crushing moment of betrayal. But the real devastation came when I confronted them and the girl casually said, "Oh, you must be David's wife. Don't worry, we're not sleeping together. He's just paying my rent, my tuition, my car payment, and giving me about $3,000 a month for expenses." That's when I realized my husband wasn't having an affair. He was funding an entire separate lifestyle for a girl young enough to be his daughter with money that should have been securing our retirement. My name is Patricia Morrison, and I'm 52 years old. I've been married to David for 27 years, and until 3 months ago, I thought we had a solid marriage built on trust, partnership, and shared goals. We raised 2 children together, built comfortable careers, and we're planning for retirement in the next decade. David is a successful financial consultant who has always handled our family finances. I trusted him completely. He managed our investments, paid our bills, handled our retirement accounts. I had access to our joint checking account for household expenses, but David managed everything else, assuring me he was maximizing our returns and securing our future. About 4 months ago, I started noticing small changes in David's behavior. He was on his phone constantly, texting and smiling in ways that seemed secretive. He started working late 3 or 4 nights a week, coming home after 9 or 10 p.m. smelling of cologne and looking refreshed rather than tired. He bought new clothes, younger, trendier styles that seemed out of character for a 55-year-old financial consultant. When I asked about the late nights, David had reasonable explanations. New clients, complex portfolios, networking events. When I commented on his new wardrobe, he said he was updating his professional image to appeal to younger clients. I wanted to trust him, but something felt wrong. My instincts, honed over 52 years of life and 27 years of marriage, were telling me something had shifted in our relationship. 2 weeks ago, David said he was working late again and would grab dinner at the office. But at 7 p.m., our daughter Emily called asking to borrow our steam cleaner, and David had told her he'd left it in his car trunk. She asked me to get it since she was coming by our house. When I went out to David's car, I noticed his laptop bag on the passenger seat, the bag he always took to late work nights. If he was working late at the office, why was his laptop at home? Suspicion bloomed into certainty. David wasn't working late. He was somewhere else, doing something he was lying about. I called his office. His secretary, who knows me well, answered cheerfully.
Oi, Patricia.
David actually left about noon today. He had the afternoon blocked off for personal appointments. Personal appointments he hadn't mentioned to me. I checked the Find My Phone app we'd set up years ago for safety reasons. David's location showed he was at Sullivan's Bar and Grill, an upscale restaurant downtown. Definitely not his office, and definitely not somewhere he'd mentioned going. My hand shook as I grabbed my purse and car keys. I drove the 20 minutes to Sullivan's Bar and Grill with my heart pounding, rehearsing what I would say when I found David with whatever woman he was obviously seeing behind my back. I parked and walked toward the restaurant, and through the large front windows, I could see into the dining area. That's when I spotted them. David and a strikingly beautiful young woman with long dark hair, probably in her mid-20s, sitting at a corner booth. They were laughing, leaning toward each other, completely absorbed in their conversation. The girl had her hand on David's arm, comfortable and familiar. I stood outside that window for probably 2 full minutes, just watching, trying to process what I was seeing. David looked happier and more animated than I'd seen him in years. The girl was gorgeous, young, and clearly adored by my husband based on the way he was looking at her. I pushed through the restaurant door and walked directly to their table. David saw me when I was about 10 feet away, and the color drained completely from his face. "Patricia," he said, half standing from the booth, his voice strangled. "What are you doing here?" "What am I doing here?" I repeated, my voice shaking. "I think the better question is, what are you doing here, David? With her?" The young woman looked between us with an expression that was shockingly calm. No guilt, no panic, just mild curiosity. "You must be David's wife," she said pleasantly, as if we were meeting at a church social.
I'm Amber.
It's nice to finally meet you. Finally meet me? I looked at David, who looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him. David, who is this woman? Are you having an affair?
No.
David said quickly. Patricia, it's not like that. I'm not sleeping with Amber. We're not having sex, Amber confirmed casually, taking a sip of her wine, expensive wine that my husband was obviously paying for. David is just helping me out financially. He's been really generous. I stared at her, then at David, trying to understand what I was hearing. Helping you out financially? What does that mean? David's face was bright red now. Patricia, can we discuss this at home? This isn't the place. Tell me now, I said, my voice cold. Tell me exactly what helping her out financially means. When David didn't respond, Amber answered for him, seemingly unbothered by the tension. David pays my rent. That's about $1,800 a month. He's covering my tuition at the university. That's about $12,000 per semester. He pays my car payment, which is $500 a month. And he gives me a monthly allowance of about $3,000 for expenses, shopping, entertainment, whatever I need. I did the math quickly in my head, my accountant brain computing the numbers even through the shock. That was at least $6,000 per month, probably closer to $7,000 or $8,000 when the tuition payments hit. $70,000 to $80,000 a year, I said slowly. You're giving this girl $70,000 to $80,000 a year of our money? It's my money, David said defensively. I earn it. I can spend it how I want. Your money? I felt something sharp and cold settle in my chest. We've been married 27 years. There is no your money and my money. It's our money. Money that should be going into our retirement, our savings, our future. And you're spending it on what? A sugar baby? Amber bristled slightly at the term. I'm not a sugar baby. David and I have a genuine friendship. He's mentoring me. Mentoring you? I looked at the designer handbag on the booth seat next to her, the expensive jewelry she was wearing, the latest iPhone on the table. By buying you luxury items and paying all your bills? He wants to help me succeed, Amber said, as if this were perfectly reasonable. I'm studying business administration, and David has been teaching me about finance and investments. The money is just his way of supporting my education and development. I turned to David. How long has this been going on? David looked at the table. About 2 years. 2 years. My voice came out as a strangled whisper. You've been giving this girl thousands of dollars a month for 2 years, and you never thought to mention it to your wife? I knew you wouldn't understand, David muttered. Understand what? That you're spending over $150,000 of our retirement savings to fund a young woman's lifestyle, while lying to me about working late? You're right, I don't understand that. Other diners were starting to stare, but I didn't care. I'd just discovered my husband had been running a secret financial relationship with a woman less than half his age for 2 years. Patricia, please, let's go home and talk about this privately, David pleaded.
No.
I want to hear it all right now. What else? What else have you been paying for? David was silent, so Amber filled in the gaps with the same casual tone, as if she were discussing the weather. He took me to Hawaii last year. You probably thought that was a business trip. He bought me my car. It's a BMW, really nice. He pays for my gym membership, my spa treatments, my shopping. Oh, and he helped me furnish my apartment. That was probably another $15,000. Each item she listed felt like a physical blow. I remembered David's business trip to Hawaii. I'd wanted to go with him, but he'd said it was wall-to-wall meetings and I'd be bored. He'd been gone for a week with this girl instead. Why? I asked David, my voice breaking. Why would you do this? What is she to you? David finally met my eyes, and what I saw there was worse than guilt. It was defiance. Because Amber appreciates me, he said. She's excited to see me. She's interested in what I have to say. She makes me feel valued and important, not like a wallet that pays bills and a retirement funder waiting to cash in. His words hit like a slap. Is that what you think of me? Of our marriage? When's the last time you asked about my work, Patricia? When's the last time you seemed excited to see me? We've become roommates who share expenses, not partners. Amber reminds me what it's like to be appreciated by a woman you're paying thousands of dollars a month. I shot back. She doesn't appreciate you, David. She appreciates your money. Do you think she'd give you the time of day if you stopped funding her entire lifestyle? Amber's confident expression flickered for just a second, and I saw the truth. This girl didn't care about David. She cared about his wallet. You don't know anything about our relationship, David said hotly. I know you've spent over $150,000 in 2 years on a girl young enough to be your daughter, while your wife had no idea. I know you've been lying to me about working late while you were taking her to dinners and trips. I know you've betrayed my trust and jeopardized our financial future for whatever fantasy this is. I pulled out my phone and opened our bank app, logging into our accounts. I'd had access the whole time, but trusted David to manage everything. Now I needed to see the damage. What I found made me physically ill. Our retirement account that should have had over $600,000 had less than $400,000. Our savings account was depleted. David had been liquidating our investments and draining our accounts to fund Amber's lifestyle. You've stolen from our future, I said, my voice hollow. You've taken money we both worked for, money we saved for retirement, for emergencies, for our life together, and you've given it to a stranger. I earned most of that money, David argued. My income has always been higher than yours. And I raised our children while working full-time, I countered. I managed our household. I supported your career by handling everything at home. Under the law, that money is half mine, and you've spent my half without my knowledge or consent. That's financial abuse, David. The term hung in the air. David's face went from red to pale. I'm not abusing you, he said weakly. You've hidden over $150,000 in expenditures from me. You've depleted our retirement savings. You've lied about your whereabouts repeatedly. You've diverted marital assets to a third party without my consent. What would you call it? David had no answer. Amber was looking uncomfortable now, probably realizing she'd been participating in something more serious than she'd understood. I think I should go, Amber said, starting to gather her things. No, I said sharply. You stay. You wanted to benefit from my husband's money. You can participate in this conversation. How old are you, Amber? 26, she said quietly. 26. I have a daughter your age. Did you know David was married? Yes, she admitted. He told me you guys had a complicated relationship, that you were more like business partners than spouses. He said you didn't understand him. I laughed bitterly. The classic lines. And you believed him? A 55-year-old man telling a 26-year-old woman that his wife doesn't understand him while he showers her with money and gifts. Amber looked down. He was nice to me. He helped me when I was struggling. With my money, I emphasized. Every dollar he gave you is money he took from our marriage, our savings, our future. You may not have known the full extent, but you knew it was wrong. You knew he was married, and you accepted his money anyway. The restaurant manager approached our table nervously. Excuse me, but we're receiving complaints about the disturbance. I'm going to have to ask you to either quiet down or take this conversation elsewhere. I stood up, my legs shaking. I'm leaving. David, I want you out of our house tonight. Take whatever you need and stay somewhere else. I'll be filing for divorce first thing Monday morning. Patricia, please. David reached for my arm, but I pulled away. Don't touch me. You've lied to me for 2 years. You've stolen from our marriage. You've betrayed every vow we made. I'm done. I walked out of that restaurant with as much dignity as I could manage, made it to my car, and completely fell apart. I sat in the parking lot crying for 20 minutes before I could drive home. When I got there, I immediately called my sister Karen and told her everything. She was at my house within an hour, and we spent the night going through every financial document, every bank statement, every investment record we could access. The full picture was even worse than I'd thought. Over 2 years, David had spent nearly $200,000 on Amber, not just monthly payments, but gifts, trips, furniture, even a small investment in what appeared to be a business venture she was starting. $200,000 from our marriage, given to a girl who saw him as a wallet. Monday morning, I met with a divorce attorney named Catherine Wells who specialized in cases involving financial deception. She reviewed all my documentation and was blunt in her assessment. Your husband has committed financial abuse by hiding these expenditures and depleting marital assets without your knowledge. In your state, all income and assets acquired during the marriage are considered marital property regardless of who earned it. He had no legal right to spend this money without your knowledge. Can I get it back? I asked. We can certainly argue that these were improper distributions of marital assets and that you're entitled to reimbursement in the divorce settlement. Whether we can actually recover the money from the girl is complicated, but we can absolutely ensure that David doesn't benefit from his deception. I filed for divorce that day. David tried to fight it at first, claiming we could work through this and that I was overreacting. But when my attorney presented the evidence of $200,000 in hidden expenditures and threatened to file criminal fraud charges, David's tune changed. The discovery process in the divorce revealed even more. David had opened credit cards I didn't know about, in his name only, but secured against our home equity, and had racked up over $50,000 in additional debt buying things for Amber. He'd taken a second mortgage on our home without telling me, getting around the signature requirement by forging my name on documents. My attorney was furious. This is fraud, Patricia. Criminal fraud. Your husband forged your signature on legal documents to fund his sugar baby lifestyle. We could have sent David to prison. My attorney recommended it, but ultimately, I just wanted to be free of him. The divorce settlement gave me the house, 70% of the remaining retirement accounts, and David was ordered to pay me spousal support for 10 years to compensate for the assets he'd depleted. He was also required to pay off all the credit card debt he'd secretly accumulated. David tried to maintain his relationship with Amber during the divorce, but, shocking absolutely no one, she lost interest the moment his income started going to legal fees, settlement payments, and spousal support instead of into her bank account. She stopped returning his calls within a month of his money drying up. David ended up having to sell his car to pay part of the divorce settlement. He moved into a small apartment and took on extra consulting work to meet his financial obligations. The mentorship, the appreciation, the excitement, all of it evaporated the moment he could no longer fund her lifestyle. My children were devastated when they learned what their father had done. My daughter Emily, who is 27, older than Amber, was particularly hurt. Dad spent more money on a stranger than he spent on my wedding, Emily said bitterly. He said we needed to have a modest wedding because of finances, but he had plenty of money. He just chose to spend it on a girl younger than me instead of his own daughter. My son, Daniel, stopped speaking to his father entirely for 6 months. When they finally reconciled, Daniel told David exactly what he thought of a man who would betray his wife and steal from his family's future to impress a woman young enough to be his child. Today I'm 53 years old, divorced after 27 years of marriage, and rebuilding a retirement that should have been secure. I work with a financial advisor now, a woman I trust who has shown me exactly how much damage David did to our long-term security. I've had to delay my planned retirement by at least 5 years. I'm working extra hours to rebuild my savings. I'm budgeting carefully in ways I wouldn't have needed to if David hadn't stolen our future to fund a fantasy relationship with a woman who saw him as an ATM. The experience taught me that betrayal doesn't always look like an affair. Sometimes it looks like secret bank accounts and hidden expenses. Sometimes it looks like a man telling his wife he's working late while he's actually at a bar buying dinner and validation from someone who only cares about his wallet. It taught me that financial infidelity can be just as devastating as sexual infidelity, maybe more so, because it doesn't just break your heart, it breaks your security and your future. Most importantly, it taught me to never fully trust someone else to manage money that's also yours. I'd given David complete control of our finances because I trusted him, and he'd abused that trust in ways that will impact the rest of my life. When I saw my husband through that restaurant window, laughing with a beautiful young woman, I thought I was about to discover an affair. What I actually discovered was worse. A man who had spent $200,000 of our money and stolen our retirement to feel important to someone who saw him as nothing but a paycheck. The girl who said, "Don't worry, we're not sleeping together," was supposed to make me feel better. Instead, It made me realize that my husband had valued money and ego over love and loyalty, and that's a betrayal deeper than any physical affair could ever be. David wanted to feel appreciated and important. David wanted to feel appreciated and important. It cost him his marriage, his relationship with his children, his financial security, and his self-respect. And all he got in return was a few years of attention from someone who disappeared the moment the money stopped flowing. I'm rebuilding now, my finances, my life, my sense of self. But I'll never forget the girl who casually listed the price of my husband's fantasy, or the man who thought funding a stranger's lifestyle was worth destroying the family he'd built over 27 years. Sometimes the worst betrayal isn't who your spouse is sleeping with. It's where your money is going while they're lying about working late.